Hi, everybody. Happy Wednesday. Today, we are going to be doing Read 3 of All Summer in a Day, and we are thinking about dialogue and figurative language. So, we've done our first and second read, and now we are doing our deep analysis. We have been practicing character inferences using steals. So for Read 2, we went through the story. We thought about things that Margot says, her thoughts, her effect on others, her actions, and her looks. For today, we're going to be focusing just on her speech and her thoughts. So we also ended Read 2 with a prediction. So to refresh our memory, I'm going to read just the very, very end of the story. Margot, one of the girls said, "Well?" No one moved. "Go on," whispered the girl. They walked slowly down the hall in the sound of cold rain. They turned through the doorway to the room in the sound of the storm and thunder, lightning on their faces blue and terrible. They walked over to the closet door, slowly, and stood by it. Behind the closet door was only silence. They unlocked the door, even more slowly, and let Margot out. So the last thing you did for your last checkpoint was you made a prediction. You said, based on what you now know about Margot and the other students in her class, what do you think might happen next? So what do you think will happen when the children let Margot out and she realizes she missed the sunshine? So this is all going to lead us to our final project, which we're going to talk about today and go into even more depth next week. Our final project is going to be to create a storyboard or write a narrative about what happens next in the story. So again, we'll talk in more detail next week, but ultimately you will either write the continuation of the story, or we're going to use an app called Storyboard That, where you're going to create a comic of the end of a story. So first, we're going to break down the prompt. This is the question we will be answering. You have read All Summer in a Day by Ray Bradbury. Create a storyboard or write a narrative that describes what happens next in the story. Use dialogue and figurative language to show what Margot says and thinks after she is let out of the closet. So I want you guys to take a moment, pause your screen, and like always, when we break down a prompt, we are going to highlight verbs. So that's the words that are action words. And we're going to highlight what the verbs tell you to do. So I'm going to give you a moment to do that. All right, after you finish the prompt, I'm going to show you what it should look like. So you should have something like this on your summit page. The words I see that are verbs are read, create, write, use, and show. So you need to read All Summer in a Day. You need to create a storyboard or write a narrative that describes what happens next. So you don't need to do both. You're going to choose one or the other. But no matter what choice you make, you have to describe what happens next in the story. We know we need to use dialogue and figurative language. And we know we need to show what Margot says and thinks after she's let out of the closet. So great stories always include these two things. Dialogue, which is what characters say and how they say it, and description, which is details that help readers to create a picture in their mind. So we learned about these things at the very beginning of the year. So to refresh our memory, I want you to just write the parts in yellow on your summit page. So what characters say and how they say it, and description is details that help readers to create a picture in their mind. So pause your PowerPoint for a second and go ahead and write this. All right, so our project is going to focus on figurative language, which is a type of description. So we're not talking about all description, we're thinking specifically about figurative language. First, let's start with dialogue, though. So great dialogue should help us understand a character's personality and be creative and interesting. So the yellow boxes you want to write in your summit notes. I'm going to give you an example of dialogue from All Summer in a Day. So this is toward the beginning of the story when Margot is trying to describe the sun to the other children on Venus. "It's like a fire," she said, "in the stove." "You're lying, you don't remember," cried the children. So this first part here is what Margot says, and she's describing the sun in a creative and interesting way. The second part, where the children say, "You're lying, you don't remember," helps us learn about the children's personalities. So they are mean to Margot and don't believe what she says. So through this dialogue, we're learning more about the characters. Now you're going to think about that beginning prompt and about the narrative or the storyboard you're going to make. And I want you to brainstorm for a second what you think Margot says when the children have unlocked the closet door to let Margot out. So I want you to think of at least one thing that Margot might say. So what does she say when she sees the kids? And at least one thing that the children, or maybe William, who's kind of the ringleader, might say back to Margot. And remember, your dialogue should be creative and interesting, and it should show something about the character's personality. So we learn about characters based on what they say. So pause your screen and type your answer for these two. All right. The other part of our prompt is figurative language, which we mentioned earlier. Figurative language is language that says more than the facts. So it's not literal language. It's saying something that really can't quite happen. For example, literal language would be saying, "He ran fast." We're just saying it like it is. We're stating the facts. He's a fast runner. Figurative language, instead of saying he ran fast, we would say he ran like the wind. So we're comparing the runner to the wind. So we're saying it in a more interesting way. So go ahead and write more in your notes under figurative language. Like dialogue, figurative language makes writing more interesting by helping you picture the story in your mind. So you're going to go ahead and fill in the yellow boxes in your summit page. For example, you could say, "My friend is sweet," and that would be literal, right? Your friend is a nice person. Or you could say, "My friend is sweet as candy." And that makes us kind of picture it a little more clearly in our head. Another example, you could say, "The pinching man was mean." A lot of you said that about our last story. Or you could say, "The pinching man is a monster." So we know that the pinching man is a man. He's not actually a monster, but this helps us picture the pinching man's personality in our mind. So we're going to be focusing on two types of figurative language for this project. The first one is a simile. So you're going to write this in your notes, write the yellow. A simile uses like or as to compare two unlike things. So when we said my friend is sweet as candy, this word as lets us know that our friend is being compared to candy. So if you see like or as, it might be a simile. A metaphor is very similar. It compares two unlike things without using like or as. So in our second example, the pinching man is a monster. We didn't say the pinching man is like a monster or is as a monster. We said the pinching man is a monster. That's a metaphor. So in All Summer in a Day, we can see both of these types of figurative language. This first line is from when the kids are running around right after the sun comes out. Then, wildly, like animals escaped from their caves, they ran and ran in shouting circles. So this is a simile because it uses like, and it's comparing the kids to wild animals because they are so excited by the sun. So we could have just said the kids are excited by the sun, but we decided to say it in a more interesting way. This second line is from when Margot is talking about the sun. This is the poem she wrote in class. I think the sun is a flower that blooms for just 1 hour. This is a metaphor because it uses is instead of like or as. This metaphor compares the sun to a flower because it is beautiful but doesn't last. So it blooms and then it will die, just like the sun is out for just a couple hours and then it goes back to the rain. So our last bit of brainstorming we are going to do today is we're going to use figurative language to describe what Margot thinks. We already thought about what Margot might say when the kids open the closet door. Now we're going to think about what is she going to think inside her head. You guys are going to come up with one simile and one metaphor to describe Margot's thoughts when she realizes she has missed the sun. So for each one, I gave you an example. For simile, she could think, I feel angry as thunder. I can't believe I won't see the sun for another 7 years. For a metaphor, maybe she's thinking, William, that's the boy who was like, let's put her in the closet. William is the devil. I will never forgive him. So you guys really get to be creative here and think, what is Margot thinking when she gets out of the closet? Maybe she's angry. Maybe she's sad. Maybe she's forgiving. You can decide how Margot reacts. Either way, you need to make sure you have a simile and a metaphor that shows her thoughts. Remember, we are describing Margot's thoughts, so the simile and metaphor should be in first person point of view. So you're going to say, I feel angry. I will never forgive him. So you're pretending you are Margot. When you are done, don't forget to request feedback. All right, thanks guys, and have a good day.